Good morning, everyone. Our chapter today is about pharmaceutical process validation. First, what is process validation or what is pharmaceutical validation? Pharmaceutical validation is to have a documented evidence, it's to have certain document, everything is written to show what? To show that the process, the manufacturing process is able to produce a product which is really qualified and having all the right specs. For example, if you are making tablet, so validation of manufacturing of tablet, it means that writing everything that shows that the manufacturing process is going well, the machine is working well, the persons or the technician working on the machine are really qualified, and so on. So at the end, you will have an evidence that this process is able to produce a product which is really qualified. So what is the aim of this pharmaceutical process validation? Of course, the first target or first aim of validation is quality assurance, to assure quality. So we are making sure that the quality is built into each unit. Each tablet will be qualified. And instead of taking samples from the batch out of 1,000 tablets, you are taking 10 tablets only as a sample and measuring the hardness or friability. Even if your sample is representative, but you are not 100% sure that the remaining batch is okay, right, like the sample. So the idea of validation again is to make sure that the process is okay, so your product, every unit in your batch will be really qualified. The second target of validation is economics. You are saving money and you are saving time, and instead of taking so many samples and making sure, for example, if your sterile products or injection are really sterile, and instead of taking 100 units to test it, you can take only 5 units, you can take only 10 vials or 10 ampoules. So you are reducing the number of tests, you are reducing the sample size, so this will save time and effort. The third factor or the third aim of validation is compliance. To be compliant with FDA requirement, with GMP guidelines, you have to have validation in your pharmaceutical plant. So here we know what we will take in this chapter. We need to make validation. Okay, who will make the validation? So structure of the validation team. For example, the quality assurance people will make the validation, or which department, or people from outside the pharmaceutical plant, for example. Second point or second title is scope of validation work. We have to validate what? We have to validate the tablet machine, or the mixer, or the stirrer, or validate the qualification of people, validate the building, validate the air condition, if it is working right or not. So what is the scope of validation work? Third title is priority of work. Which is more important? We have to prioritize the work. For example, if we have sterile products and non-sterile products, which one is more important? Which one is should come first in the validation? If we have, for example, tablet and capsule, or tablet and liquid dosage form, potent drug, product with a potent drug, and a product with non-potent drug, so which is more important? That is a priority of work. Then the documents that need to be filled. We have to have a plan for validation. We have to have another document for the results, another document for the conclusion or the findings, and so on. So let's start with the first title, which is structure of validation team. Who is supposed to make the validation work? We have 3 options. The first option is to have consultant group. The idea of having a consultant, or the word consultant, it means you are hiring people from outside the pharmaceutical plant to do the validation job. What is the advantage of that? The advantage is mainly economic. You are saving time, and instead of having a team taking a monthly salary, even if there is validation work or there is no validation work, you are hiring a people whenever required. If you want to make validation this month, you will hire the team for this month only, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, and after the validation work finished, they will leave, and so you will save money. But the disadvantage that they may not have enough experience to know the work, what is going on in the pharmaceutical plant. Of course, anyone inside the pharmaceutical plant will know more and better than the people coming from outside. And also the problem is, if you are making a contract with them for 2 weeks and for any reason the validation work doesn't finish within 2 weeks, so they may leave without completing the work. They may leave because the contract itself finished. You have to renew it with them, and this will make some problem. Second option is having a task force group. Task force group, it means you are bringing individuals from other department, like a representative from quality assurance department, from production, from engineering, from R&D. For certain period of time you are changing their job. You are giving them another duties. You are assigning them to make the validation for 1 or 2 weeks, and after they finish, they will go back again to their department to continue the normal duties or normal job. The advantage here, they have experience because they know really what is going on inside the pharmaceutical plant. And the other advantage that the membership or the work, their job description is very flexible. Once they finish, they will go back. There is no extra payment within the same salary. They can change their job for 2 weeks only to be a member of the validation team and then go back again to their original department. But the main problem here is the dual responsibilities. I cannot judge myself. For example, if I am in the validation team now and I'm originally from the production department, so when I work as a member in the validation team, I cannot go to the production department and tell, oh, there is a problem in the tablet machine. It is not discovered by my team, and I discovered it now. So of course I may hide some problem which is present in my department. So that is called dual responsibility. The third option is to have dedicated group. One group for my people, for my pharmaceutical plant, having a job of validation all over the year. It's very good. They have, of course, more experience of they have the knowledge what is going on in the pharmaceutical plant, and they have also more experience regarding how the validation should be done. And there is no dual responsibility now also, because now I'm not coming from any department. If I go to the production department or engineering or QA or R&D, I'll tell frankly, without hiding anything, that here there is a problem, this machine is not working well, these people are not qualified, and so on. But the problem is, again, it is not economic, because I have to, as a member in the dedicated group of validation team, I have to take salary every month. That is extra payment for the company. I have to take salary either there is validation work or even there is no validation work. Then we need to know what is the scope of validation work. We need to make validation for what? Actually, we need to make validation for everything from D to D. D to D, it means from design to delivery. From design of the dosage form and research and development till delivery of the product to the customer or to the patient. Everything include personnel, validation of qualification, responsibilities, job description, validation of the building. So we need people from the engineering department to validate the design of the building if there is any problem construction, validate the surface, like pipelines of water, lighting, air condition, sanitation or cleaning, validation of equipment, design, size, type, vendor of equipment, everything related to the equipment, raw material, again the supplier, The quality control test that is done by quality control department for the raw material, validate or revise the procedure. SOP, standard operating procedure, sampling. Of course, SOP, for example, is made by quality assurance. So if we have a task force group for quality assurance department, they will not come and tell you that SOP is wrong. That is the problem of task force group again. So dedicated group is better for that. Validate procedure, validate packaging, warehouse or storage, lab control or quality control records or reports filled by all other departments. So that is the scope of validation work. They have to validate everything from D to D or from design to delivery. Then what is the priority of validation work? If we have to make validation work for everything, so what is more important? We need to know. Everything mentioned in this slide is coming in the right order. So don't change the order of the items here. When I mention first sterile products in the first point, so sterile products are more important than non-sterile products. If we have a line for production of injection, that is more important than tablet. So first we have to start with sterile products. Which part in sterile product? Large volume parenteral is more important than a small volume parenteral. Why large volume parenteral is important? Because the patient may take 1 liter per day. So if there is microorganism or if there is a problem in the production, so the patient is taking huge volume of contaminated liquid. So it will kill the patient immediately. Although it may not have drug, it may be a saline or glucose solution, dextrose solution, but still it is a huge volume. That is more important than a small volume parenteral, although small volume parenteral may have active ingredient. But here regarding contamination and microorganism, at the end the patient may take 1 milli or 0.5 milli. So of course everything is important, all sterile products are important, but the large volume parenteral are more critical than small volume parenteral in terms of validation. Then ophthalmic will come in the third stage. Ophthalmic, because of course still it is sterile, but at the end it may, if there is a contamination, this may lead to infection, but it may not kill the patient. And of course still it is dangerous, of course. And then they will consider non-sterile products. And which type of non-sterile products? Again, we need to start with low dose, high potency solids like tablet or capsule who are having potent active ingredient, CNS acting drug with very small dose, or angina drug, anti-anginal or something like that. Then other tablet and capsule, for example, the tablet we may contain paracetamol, augmentin, non-potent drugs. Then the third stage here in non-sterile is oral liquid and also topical and other diagnostics and so on. So we know now who will make the validation, and he will make validation for what, and what is the priority even of the validation work. This title now, validation document, how to document everything. And you know that the first word in the description or definition of pharmaceutical validation is establishing documented evidence. So we need to know which document we have to fill. Mainly we have 3 documents. The first one is called master validation plan, the second one is called protocol, and the third one is called report. To start everything, you have to make a plan first. So that is why we have the first document is called master validation plan. So the plan should contain the validation policy. What is the policy of the company or the pharmaceutical plant in the validation work? Who will make the validation? So this plan should contain the organizational structure of the validation team. And then it should contain also, we need to do validation for what? For facilities, which facilities? For equipment, for process. And it should contain also the document format or the template for the coming 2 documents. Template for protocol and template for the reports should be included inside the plan. Empty template only. And then the scheduling, the plan in terms of time, the validation for this process should be done every month, while for the other equipment it should be done every 2 weeks or every 3 months, and so on. After planning, to do everything, you need to have a procedure, method. So that is the second document, which is called the validation protocol. It is mainly the method, how to make the validation. In the first one, we said that we need to make validation for tablet machine. That is plan. But here you will have a validation protocol for the tablet machine, where you will mention the method, how to validate the tablet machine, and what to analyze, what to measure in the tablet machine. You will measure the force of compression, you will measure the rate of movement of the lower bunch, you will measure the extent of movement of the lower bunch, you will measure, for example, the feeding rate of the hopper and feeding show. All these parameters are called critical parameters. So the critical parameters of the process, or CPP, are the variables or the parameters that need to be controlled to make sure that the machine or the process is working well, is able to produce a qualified product, which is a tablet here. And of course, you should mention for every critical parameter what is the allowable range. For example, for the feeding rate, it should be between 20 and 30. For the force, it should be between 4 and 8, and so on. The last document that describes validation is a validation report, and every report should be connected to protocol. So you should have a protocol for the tablet machine validation, and you should have also a report for the tablet machine, and both are connected together. So in the beginning, you should mention in the report that this report is connected to or referred to that protocol. You have to write your result and evaluate it, like result and discussion in any research. So you should write if this result are within the range or outside the range, or if it is deviated outside the acceptable range, you have to write the reason or try to investigate the reason. And at the end, you need to write your conclusion about the results. If at the end, if the equipment is validated, well validated, or having a problem that need to be addressed. Here we have another title, which is phases of validation or steps of validation. Validation can be broken down or can be divided into 4 steps: design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification. And the abbreviation here is very common. We need to know DQ is design, IQ is installation, OQ is operational, and BQ is performance qualification. To understand the difference between them, let's go to the next 2 slides to know exactly what is the meaning of each step. First step in validation is design qualification. The word design qualification, it means, for example, if we want to purchase a tablet machine, compression machine, so first we need to describe what is the use. Okay, so the use is to compress the tablet. We need tablet machine, so that is the first step. Description of the intended use of the equipment. Second step is selection of the specs. Do you want the tablet machine to be single bunch or multiple bunch rotary machine? Do you want it to produce large batches on less time? So better to use, of course, rotary machine. Okay, so second step is selection of the specs, selection of the specification based, of course, on your intended use or the need. Third step is to select supplier. For example, we need to send the required specs to different supplier or different vendor, and then they will send you a quotation, the price and the specs that they can offer to you. So based on that, you have to select the best supplier. Second step, after receiving the tablet machine, of course, it doesn't come as it is, it comes as pieces. Bits and pieces, and then it should be installed, because it is a huge machine. It should be installed after receiving it. So the first step in installation qualification, from the title itself, first step is installation. And you need to calibrate it. You need to make sure that it is really working well. It is everything is moving right. There is no friction between the upper bunch and the die, or lower bunch and the die. The feed show and the hopper is moving right and left. There is no any problem. That is called calibration. And then if the tablet machine, for example, needs certain utilities, needs certain type of electricity, like which volt, which ampere, if you have, for example, water bath or rotary evaporator and it need water supply, so you need to fix this water supply. If there is gas chromatography and you need, for example, nitrogen gas to be present beside the equipment, so you need to prepare all the environmental condition required for the equipment. So that is called installation qualification. After installation, we will come to operational qualification. Operational qualification, you have to make sure that the instrument really working well after installation. So you have to try it. And also after trying it, you have to prepare SOP, standard operating procedure, how to use the equipment. You have to make training for the personnel or technician or the pharmacist at working on this equipment. All that is coming under operational qualification. After that, you are now installed the equipment is working well, you tried it for 1 day, for 2 days, every day you are keep it working for 1 hour, 2 hours just for trying, you make training for the personnel. The last step is to make performance qualification. You have to keep the equipment working for 8 hours, for 10 hours, which is simulating the real condition. So you have to use it really in production. Same condition, you have to add powder. If it is a tablet machine, add 1 kilogram powder and keep the tablet machine working for long time as normal, and to make sure that during this 10 hours and every day you are using it, every day 10 hours, 10 hours, for 1 week, for 2 weeks, the performance is not changing, no rusting, no breakage of any bunch or any die, and so on. So here you are making sure that the process is repeatable, no problem over the long term. Here we have another important title, which is in types of validation. We have mainly 3 types of validation: prospective validation, retrospective validation, and revalidation. First one is prospective validation. The word prospective, it means something which happened in advance, happened before the production. This prospective validation include design qualification. You are designing and selecting the equipment before starting the production process, before starting the production line. You are installing also the equipment, receiving it from the vendor and installing it. And then you are trying it also, that you will make sure that it is working, you will make training for personnel, you will make the SOP. All that is happening before starting the production. All that is happening where there is no historical data to analyze, everything is new, you are producing this, you are making this product for the first time, and that is happening of course in new products. The other option to make prospective validation is trial products. Trial products where in-process quality control, to take sample during production or to take sample from the finished product after producing the whole batch, is very expensive. Some injection may cost $1,000, $500. So the best thing is to repeat the operational qualification before every batch. Before every batch, you have to make sure that SOP is written well, people are trained well, and also machine is working well. So you have to repeat mainly operational qualification before every batch. So that is called or considered as prospective validation. The second type of validation is retrospective validation. The word retro, it means it happened after production. So after production, you will have results. You will have the results or the findings of the end process quality control test, the quality control test of the finished product. So you can make just statistical analysis, just reviewing the result, make sure that everything is okay. So you will do retrospective validation if there is returned products came from the market, came back again. If there is recall for certain batch due to certain problem, so you cannot make validation in advance now. you have to make it retrospective, because already the product is produced and distributed to the market, and then you have a problem, so you made a recall for this batch. So you will analyze the historical data and try to investigate where is the problem. It comes from which part in the production steps. Even if there is no problem in point C and D, if there is no problem, the process is stable, there is no new equipment added or no change in the raw material, no change in anything, but you have to make the validation frequently, every 1 month, every 2 months, just to maintain the good job. So even if there is no problem, you have to make retrospective validation every certain time. The third type of validation is revalidation, and of course from the word revalidation, it means you will repeat certain part of the total work of validation. When you want to repeat if there is something critical changed, like changed in component, changing in the raw material, changing in an equipment. Instead of single punch machine, you purchased a rotary machine, or instead of the old rotary machine, you purchased another new one which may be better. Change in the facility or location, and instead of the production in this building, you transferred or locate the manufacturing line to another building, for example. Significant increase or decrease in the batch size, and instead of producing 1,000 tablets at once in a single batch, you are producing 3,000 or 4,000 tablets. So of course, stability of the machine may change. If you keep the machine working, and instead of 4 hours, you are keeping it working for 12 hours. So you have to make sure that the machine is still stable and producing or giving a product with the same quality. Or if there is a sequential batch failure, and last lecture we were talking about quality control chart. If you have several batches with a sample average above or outside the limit between the upper control limit and lower control limit, if you have several batches after each other having assignable causes of variation, so here you need to make a revalidation. Repeat the whole work of validation to trying to investigate and to find or pinpoint the problem in the production. The last few slides in this chapter, starting from this slide, is for demonstration, just to understand the difference between validation and the quality control. Here we'll start with tablet, the most important dosage form. You know, for any tablet, you need first to take the active pharmaceutical ingredient, API, and make grinding and add the remaining excipient, some of the excipient like disintegrant, diluent, for example, and make mixing, and then add binder, make granulation, drying of the granules if there's a wet granulation method, so you need drying, and then sieving or sifting of the granules, allow it to pass from sieve, so the big granules will be kept on the sieve, the small powder will escape, and then add the remaining excipient, diluent, and disintegrant again. Of course, we have here two addition or two portion of disintegrant. This disintegrant is added to disintegrate the tablet into granules. So here the disintegrant is added after making the granules. It is outside the granules, just to disintegrate the tablet into granules. But even the granule itself from the beginning, it has disintegrant inside it. So the granules itself has disintegrant. So after disintegration of the tablet, the portion of disintegrant present inside the granules will help the granules to disintegrate into fine powder. And then you will make mixing, add lubricant at the end, so it will be in touch with the machine, the hopper, to improve flowability, prevent sticking, and then compression. And if you want, there is film coating, enteric coating, sugar coating, then blister packaging. So that are the steps of tablet manufacturing, and we need here to differentiate again between quality control and validation. What are the quality control tests for tablet? We have, for example, hardness, friability, weight variation, content, uniformity. Don't forget dissolution also. This is quality control test for the finished product. That is not validation at all. Let's go to the next few slides to understand how to make validation for the process itself. We need actually to validate every step in tablet production. For example, in case of milling or grinding, how to validate the size reduction equipment. What are the critical parameters, CPP, critical parameter of the process here? What we need to measure to validate this size reduction equipment or grinder? We need to measure the feeding rate. The feeding rate is introduced with which rate? Or the feed is introduced with which rate? The milling speed, the rotation speed of the hammer mill, the screen size. So you have to investigate the opening size, the mesh number of the screen to make sure that everything is well. That is validation. So how to make here in process quality control? We can take sample from the product and make sure that the particle size is okay, because here the product of the milling step is just powder, and you need to check if the size of the powder is small enough or not. So you can take the powder and measure the size like the previous chapter. You can measure the size under microscope or by sieving or whatever to make sure that the size is okay. That is in-process quality control. So again, measuring parameters in the equipment itself, like the feeding rate, milling speed or rotation speed, screen size, that is validation. While testing the product of the step, not essentially to be the finished product. Finished product is the normal quality control, but product of each step, that is called in-process quality control. So to measure the size of this product, that is called IBQC. Let's take another example, which is blending or mixing. If you have not a mixer, so we can measure the mixing time, the rotation speed or the mixing speed. That is validation for the equipment. So how to make IBQC quality control? You need to take the mixture after finish, and this mixture, for example, if you remember the mixing experiment in the lab, so it may, if you have, for example, sodium bicarbonate and talc, so you need to analyze sodium bicarbonate to make sure really if they are mixing well or not, 50% bicarbonate and 50% talc. So if you make a test for the product itself, that is called in-process quality control. If you are testing the equipment, that is called validation. In the compression step, if you measure the compression force of the machine, the movement of the lower bunch, feeder speed, the speed of the feeding show moving right and left, that is called validation. While if you measure hardness, friability, weight variation, thickness or whatever, dissolution, that is called quality control. Again, in band coating, for example, if you measure band size, band speed, temperature, anything related to the process itself, that is validation. While if you measure thickness of the coat in the product, that is quality control. The last slide here is talking about semi-solid. Let's understand first how semi-solid are produced simply. You have to add the raw material, active pharmaceutical ingredient, and other excipient. Some of the excipient, of course, will be semi-solid, like lanolin or vaseline. And you have to make mixing under or in jacketed vessels, usually under high temperature, with high speed, and after that you will fill the ointment or cream or gel into tubes. So we need here to differentiate again between validation and quality control. Critical parameter process for mixing is mixing time, RPM, or temperature of the jacket. while after making the semi-solid, clarity of the gel could be a quality control test, viscosity of the semi-solid, amount of the active ingredient inside the cream or gel is called or considered as quality control. After filling, the rate of filling, during filling, the rate of filling is considered critical parameter process or validation, while after filling, the amount of semi-solid gel or cream or ointment filled inside the tube is considered as quality control test. Thank you so much, and see you inshallah in the next chapter.